Bernardus Djonpurto, thanks for taking the time to be with us today. Climate change is happening quite rapidly if you compare it to geological standards, but on the other hand, perhaps quite slowly compared to urban planning cycle times. What kind of impact is climate change now having on those cycles?
I think if you see today, it's very much impacting the way we plan our cities today. If you look at the regulatory framework of our statutory plan and our city plans, it mandated the need for every local plans to adopt the disaster preparedness and all the necessary strategy and policy to mitigate disasters because of climate change and all. Secondly, I think it's within our planning policies in the country. We need to adopt the bottom-up participatory planning. This is very important because with this we can actually gauge the participation of local communities. Now, very often in our cities, the most vulnerable people live where it is impacted most by climate change risks, and through research that the Indonesian Associations of Planning done, which I will share also in the conference, is that we adopted a participatory planning with the local community together with the most vulnerable people to get that local wisdom and adopt that into the zoning regulation planning cycle for all the cities within coastal areas of Java.
I believe the figures for Indonesia is you must be pretty much coming close to being 50% urbanized now, and by 2030 that's projected to be 70% or perhaps even more. Isn't that, however, an opportunity?
I think we recognize the phenomena as you mentioned earlier, and this is this phenomena has been more and more put into accounts in any of our planning products in Indonesia. By developing our policy frameworks within the central government as well as the local government, there are more and more emphasis put into disaster preparedness measures. More and more Indonesian cities are designed towards becoming a green and smart cities. By having that as part of our strategy and policy framework, I think we are seeing more, and hopefully more and more Indonesian cities are becoming more prepared. I think it's also important to note that in terms of urbanization, Java Island is growing very fast today. We are building the major infrastructure. Once the double track train from east to west, from Surabaya to Jakarta, and the toll roads are all connected, we are looking at one of the biggest urban conurbation in the world, with about 110 million people will be living in one island. I think this is a major force. This is a major economic power. We have at the moment 250 million people, growing from GDP per capita income of 4,000 and growing to become 10,000 in the next 20 years. The populations at the moment is enjoying and will be enjoying in the next 20-30 years a what's so-called population bonus, where we have more than 60% of our populations below 39. So we are blessed with a growing productive age populations, and you combine that with the opportunities of the growth, and I think that represent a huge opportunities.
You mentioned the healthy state of the Indonesian economy, and indeed it's been growing quite well for the last few years and is projected to do so for some considerable time, which is obviously good news in terms of the revenue base that you can look at for urban resiliency. But I'm wondering, in terms of Indonesia in particular, I mean, you have what you might call soft challenges in the area of governance. To what extent is that a hindrance, or do you think that, in fact, crisis helps to focus minds?
We are now experiencing, if anything, one of the greatest democratic transition of a country from an authoritarian about only 15, 17 years ago to become now, I think, one of the number 3 largest democracy in the world. We've gone through some of this process, and I think comes with it also an empowerment of leaders and local governments. More and more governance become key issues, especially because today governments need to answer directly to its constituents, right? All 500 mayors and 34 governors, regencies, are all directly elected. So you see more and more that that empowering environment, as well as a move towards a more transparent and well-governed cities or regencies, because of that direct link and direct responsibility to your constituents.
And presumably more policy development at a local level, yes?
Very much so. And I think if we talk about how your city plan works and how you plan your what we call a detailed plan or statutory plan and zoning regulations, it's all under the local government. So it has gone very far from what it was 30 years ago. Secondly, this whole democratization process and the latest development have helped us found so many star mayors and star governors, which bring about the reform and changes in our cities. So the result is very obvious today. You will see more and more vibrant Indonesian cities where urbanism and the state of the infrastructure is becoming more better than the other cities, and people are starting to be able to voice their concerns, and at the same time bottom-up planning are encouraged. The biggest challenge today for Indonesia is to build that needed infrastructure across the country to link all these enclaves of great growth potentials.
Bernardus Djonpurto, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Welcome.